that's why we modified it, because we can't leave anything alone, and I'm a child, I guess. So, what's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And as you can see from the title or the thumbnail, we're doing some more mods on the 01 Grand Cherokee, the new white WJ that I got. And today we are going to be removing the rear resonator, is what we're going to call it, because we don't want to call it the other thing that it might or might not be, but we are going to be doing a exhaust mod, and I'll kind of explain why and why we are doing this. So this is the underside of the 4-liter Grand Cherokee WJ, and way up front we do have two catalytic converters that are tucked really up high by the engine. And as we follow the exhaust back, right behind the cross member, there is a relatively large cat, and it does hang down pretty decently. And if you're out off-roading, these will hang up a lot of the time. So hopefully what we're going to be doing today is replacing this pipe from here all the way to here. And what we're going to be installing is a 2004 V8 Jeep Grand Cherokee mid-pipe. And this is what that piece looks like. These are super cheap. They're like $12 online. It is a Walker branded exhaust pipe piece, a 53530. And like I said, this thing was like $12 on Rock Auto. Now the Burgundy Jeep already has this exhaust mod done to it. I did it a long time ago, and it was even more needed because I have a high clearance iron rock off-road cross member. So everything on this Jeep is tucked up really, really nice and high. That resonator, as we're going to be calling it, was right here and hung down really, really low. So as you can see, with this resonator delete pipe installed, it's really nice, high clearance, and really smooth for off-road. Now, taking apart exhaust on a old vehicle that's been connected for years and years and years is no fun at all. I'm going to be cutting, I'm going to be air hammering. It's not going to be pretty. It wasn't very nice to do on the 99 Jeep Grand Cherokee, but I'd really like to get rid of that resonator there at the back. And like I said, this 4-liter still has both of the upstream catalytic converters with the O2 sensors that are monitored. This downstream resonator does not have any O2 sensors, so it is not monitored. And at least in Kansas, we are not an inspection state. So we don't have a yearly inspection for our vehicles, nothing to look at, no, place that we have to take our vehicles to. So in your state, you may not be able to modify your exhaust, and this might not work for you, but this is something that we do on our WJs for off-road ground clearance. So basically, that's why we're doing it. No, I don't plan on off-roading this yet, but everything needs to be able to go to the racetrack like the Camaro. The TRX that you guys are sitting on needs to be able to tow, jump, whatever. Everything needs to have a purpose. You can't just have a vehicle to drive on the road. Everything needs to be modified. So that's what we're doing today. We're continuing the cheap modifications with this Grand Cherokee, and hopefully I'll be able to take that original resonator that I'm pulling off and get some money out of scrap value for it. So I won't really be spending anything. I will be making money on this mod, since that resonator will be scrapped and get the money for its metal value. So we'll get in the shop. I'll throw you guys on the tripod, and it's going to be a lot of cutting, grinding. I hope I can get it in there decently. I've got some exhaust clamps for it, but we'll get it on there and hopefully have a little more ground clearance, and the Jeep will pay me back for doing a mod to it, and that's pretty rare. So let's jump into the shop. So guys, I'm starting off by just cutting off the old original band style clamps. They're old, rusty. There's no point in trying to get the nuts loose on them. So I'm just cutting the clamps off and trying not to cut into the exhaust pipe with the cutoff wheel. Then grabbing some pliers here and just working and breaking those exhaust clamps off so we can start to get the pipe removed and out of the way. Now I am obviously using a Sawzall, and we are just cutting through the pipe section where it does not overlap, so we can continue getting this exhaust pipe off without damaging any of the pipe that's staying on the vehicle, because we still need to be able to reuse the exhaust pipe. Now this is a air hammer with a panel cutter. It's specifically for exhaust pipe. It kind of just skims along in between two pipes without damaging the pipe underneath, and you can slowly drive it along and cut a exhaust pipe. It works pretty well, and that piece came off in one. We're now here at the muffler area, and I'm just cutting it as close as I can to the muffler so I have as little material to have to deal with. And again, I'm taking that panel cutter, I cut through it on the inside, and then was able just to drag that piece out. Now I've got a brand new 2.5-inch band clamp, and I've got the exhaust pipe piece slid on, and I'm going to be tightening that down, at least getting it snug where that pipe isn't moving around anymore. And at the muffler, I just ended up using a 2.5-inch, 3-inch wide band clamp, because the two pieces are almost the exact same diameter, so you're not really going to be able to slide one in the other. I'm not a welder, so you could have just welded these two together back here and it would have been perfectly fine. I just wanted to get this on and get it back on the road, so I used that 3-inch wide, 2.5-inch band clamp like I'm installing now. Was able to tighten that up and lock those two pieces of pipe together. Yeah, I know, butt connecting a exhaust pipe is not the best, but with that nice big wide 3-inch band clamp, it seems to be holding fine, and it's going to work great. Well guys, before I get this thing fired up after our exhaust mod, I wanted to throw a fresh set of spark plugs in this thing. And I know this thing's had some spark plugs put in it in the past, because all of the service records that are written down on a post-it note over on the airbox show that, but it said it had Bosch spark plugs, and I wanted to throw some factory MOPAR plugs in it. There is that part number, if you guys can see. And that factory MOPAR spark plug is just an NGK, just a nickel spark plug, nothing fancy, no iridium, just a normal spark plug. And I am a big, massive advocate for factory spark plugs. We see a lot of vehicles come in with misfires and different weird issues because of aftermarket spark plugs. So I always like factory plugs, and if it's got aftermarket, I'll rip them out, throw them away, put factories back in it, and typically it will be happy. Now the only issue with this thing is at idle. At idle, it just idles rougher than a 4-liter should. It just feels not perfect. So instead of doing any diagnosis, we're just gonna start off with those fresh MOPAR spark plugs. See if that takes care of it, because I need to do it anyway. So I'm not really wasting money throwing parts at something, because I already know I would want to replace them. Oh, and guys, this is exactly what I'm talking about here. These are the Bosch Platinum Fusion spark plugs that I've pulled out with 4 tips on them versus what should be in it, just the single tip. And look at the height difference of these spark plugs here. You can see the MOPAR plug goes, what, another 1/4 of an inch down into the cylinder, compared to these very wrong aftermarket spark plugs, which are too short, completely wrong, and just garbage. Please just use MOPAR spark plugs. Don't use these garbage things. I'm assuming this is going to completely fix my issue. And that spark plug was even really loose down in the cylinder, so, or in the head. So yeah, please don't use this stuff. And again, guys, there are those completely different spark plugs, the crazy weird junk Bosch Platinums with 4 tips versus the factory NGK MOPARs that just obviously have a single. And then just look at that height difference. That spark plug wasn't anywhere near where it needed to be down in the cylinder head. It was a 1/4 inch out of the cylinder, and that can't be good for runnability, spark, anything. So we'll get these factory MOPAR plugs thrown in, fire this thing up, see how it idles, see how it sounds. So now I'm gonna clean the throttle body because this thing was absolutely nasty. I've just got some combustion chamber cleaner, or you can use throttle body cleaner or brake cleaner, or literally anything that's gonna help kind of break up those carbon deposits. Spray it on there, let it sit for a second, then use a rag or a toothbrush. I'm getting ready to grab a toothbrush here and just clean the throttle body blades, everything. Now, you need to be mindful. I believe there's some Ford throttle bodies that there's a coating on and you don't want to clean it off, but this one you can clean. All of our Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge stuff, and this is how it looks once it's clean. It looks nice and pretty and brand new. All right, guys, we're gonna fire this thing up with the exhaust mod and the fresh spark plugs and our clean throttle body. It's gotta run smoother. I mean, those plugs were absolutely junk. So if nothing else, it should run smoother. So I know you guys obviously can't feel that, but in idle, in gear before, the thing just shook and vibrate, and it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like a smooth 4-liter should. I had a Jeep Wrangler with the 4-liter, obviously, long time ago, and it just was smooth, and this thing was never smooth. It almost felt like a motor mount was bad and, you know, vibrating the vehicle, but I think it was those absolutely garbage spark plugs that weren't even long enough to go all the way down into the cylinder head, into the combustion chamber where they're supposed to be. This thing feels already so much better just sitting here idling. And like I said, in gear, it feels very, very much improved with just putting the correct factory MOPAR spark plugs in this thing. Now, exhaust noise. Do I hear any loud, rowdy, 4-liter noises? No, it sounds very normal. Obviously, we've still got those 2 catalytic converters up at the very front by the motor, and then we have the humongous factory muffler on this thing. It sounds completely normal. But like we were talking about, the added benefit of not having that resonator right about here hanging down multiple inches, it just makes the ground clearance of this thing considerably better, right where it counts, right? Kind of your breakover angle here in the middle where you could get high centered on stuff. So we now have the exhaust up out of the way. You can now see the transfer case and that cross member are the 2 low hanging fruit on this thing. Well, guys, we got spark plugs in it and we got our exhaust mod taken care of on this thing. And honestly, I didn't know the obviously bigger thing today was going to be those spark plugs. Obviously, I knew they were the wrong spark plug, but I had no idea they were too short. They were just outrageously wrong. This thing should feel so much better. I'm basically more excited about that than the exhaust. I'm going to be pulling out onto the highway here, and it never really felt, I don't know, it didn't feel as strong as I thought a 4-liter should originally. And as I'm accelerating, no, it's not some big powerhouse. It's a 4-liter inline 6, but it kind of feels like it should. So I am very, very happy to get a little bit more power. And honestly, the thing, in theory, should get better fuel economy now that it can actually get spark down into the combustion chamber where it's supposed to be, in the right spark plug, in the right heat range of spark plug, and all that important things that spark plugs do. So please don't get aftermarket goofy 4-tip spark plugs unless your vehicle calls for it. But just get the factory plug. I know that sounds very technician of me, but just get the factory spark plugs. If it's an Audi, go to Audi. If it just get them. You'll thank yourself later. At least on our Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge stuff, they are relatively particular. I have seen vehicles come in for a misfire and fix it with putting the correct spark plugs in. So guys, just do yourself a favor, get the factory plugs, don't think about it again, and be happy. This thing feels so much better. Sitting at idle, in gear, smooth now. It's not rough, it's not vibrating like it was. What a difference a set of spark plugs can make. Now onto the exhaust. Our Resonator delete that we did with the 4-liter with the 2 upstream catalytic converters and still the big, huge, massive muffler, I don't hear it. There's no drone. I don't even hear any more exhaust noise, but we gained some ground clearance, and that's what I was going for. Yes, this one is not going to be the primary off-road vehicle, but everything needs to be able to do what it was supposed to do, and very well, or at least as good as it can be. So that's why we modified it, because we can't leave anything alone, and I'm a child, I guess. So I know there has been an outrageous amount of old Grand Cherokee content lately, and if you're a Jeep person, great, and if you're not, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get this thing up and as perfect as I can make it in a short amount of time-ish kind of thing. So that's why we've been grinding away on this thing, getting it as good as I can. And guys, if you're watching, thank you so much. I truly appreciate every single comment, every single view, every like. It means everything to me and this little channel that we've got going. So again, thank you very much. And guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.